Okay, picture this. You build this absolutely magnificent capital city, right? It's the beating heart of a powerful empire. And then, poof, just 16 years later, it's completely abandoned, swallowed by the jungle. Today, we're going to unpack the incredible mystery of Koh Ker, Cambodia's lost pyramid city.
So yeah, this is the mystery in a nutshell. You're looking at what was the heart of a thriving capital that just appeared out of nowhere, and then it vanished from history just as fast. The big question, the one we're all thinking, is why? I mean, what on earth could make an entire empire pack up and leave its brand new, spectacular capital after only 16 years? It just doesn't make sense.
All right, so to even begin solving this puzzle, we've got to understand where and, what Koh Ker actually is. And let me tell you, this isn't just another temple ruin. We're talking about an entire forgotten metropolis.
So Koh Ker is way out there, deep in the Cambodian jungle. It's a good 120 kilometers away from the world-famous Angkor Wat. And this was no small village, okay? We're talking about a massive, sprawling complex with over 180 sanctuaries that we know of, scattered across a huge area. And what's truly mind-blowing is that the jungle there is so remote and so dense that it still hasn't been fully demined. Think about that. It means a ton of these temples are still hidden, just waiting to be rediscovered after all these centuries.
Geographically, this move was just staggering. The traditional heart of the Khmer Empire was always at Angkor, down in the south. So to just up and move the entire capital to Koh Ker, way up north and so far from the established seat of power, that was an absolutely radical decision. To give you some perspective, it's kind of like deciding to move the U.S. capital from Washington, D.C. to, a remote corner of Montana, practically overnight. It's that big of a deal.
And the wild part is, the differences didn't stop with the location. Nope, the architecture itself was a total revolution. See, most Khmer temples, think Angkor Wat, are built in this series of concentric squares. It's meant to be like a cosmic mountain. Well, Koh Ker just threw that whole playbook out the window. It was built on a linear plan, with everything laid out along one single axis. This wasn't just a change of address. This was a completely new, radical vision for what an imperial capital could be.
So, you have to ask, right? Who was the mastermind behind this absolutely audacious project? Well, that brings us to the central figure in our mystery. A king who might have been a brilliant visionary, or maybe just a renegade.
Let's meet Jayavarman IV. For 13 pretty short years, this guy was the most powerful man in the entire Khmer Empire. And boy, did he use that power to orchestrate this massive move. The leading theory, the one that makes the most sense, is that this remote jungle region was actually his homeland. So when he got the top job, he basically decided to bring the whole empire's center of gravity home with him.
But here's the thing, this move was so dramatic, so disruptive, that it's fueled this huge debate among historians for decades. Was this a legitimate king, confidently ruling from his own turf? Or was he a usurper, a pretender to the throne, who basically ran away from the traditional capital because he knew he couldn't hold it?
Okay, let's weigh the evidence. On the one hand, the argument for him being a usurper is pretty simple. Moving the capital was just a radical break with tradition. But the case for his legitimacy is actually much, much stronger. First off, he married the half-sister of the previous king, which gave him a direct family connection. And even more importantly, the two previous kings, the old king's sons, they both died without any children to inherit the throne. So there was a huge power vacuum, and Jayavarman IV stepped right into it. That's why most historians today are pretty confident he was the rightful ruler.
So with his claim to the throne totally secure, Jayavarman IV kicks off one of the most ambitious and, frankly, fastest construction projects in human history. The next 16 years at Koh Ker were just an absolute whirlwind of activity.
I want you to just try and wrap your head around the sheer scale of this 16-year boom. First up, population. Inscriptions tell us the city was home to more than 10,000 people, a bustling city, right in the middle of the jungle. And to support all those people, an absolute army of workers built around 40 new temples. 40! They completely transformed the landscape in just a couple of decades. And the crown jewel, towering over everything else, the city's centerpiece, a stunning 7-tiered pyramid shooting 36 meters straight up into the sky. Incredible.
The city's original name wasn't actually Koh Ker. It was called Lingampura, which means the city of lingams. And that name gives us a massive clue about its whole purpose. See, Jayavarman IV was a super devout follower of the Hindu god Shiva, and this entire city was basically a monument to his faith. It was filled with these sacred stone symbols called lingams, all dedicated to his god.
And that pyramid we mentioned? That was the ultimate expression of his devotion. This wasn't just a temple. It was the state temple, the big one. Right at its very peak, there used to be a massive lingam, a powerful symbol of the king's divine authority and his direct line to Shiva. For 16 years, that one building was the absolute religious and political center of the entire Khmer Empire. Everything revolved around it.
So all that power, all that incredible construction, all that glory, and then, just like that, it came to a dead stop. Almost overnight, the entire city was abandoned.
So what happened? How did it all fall apart? Well, the collapse was shockingly swift. In 941 AD, Jayavarman IV, the founder, dies. His son takes over, but he only reigns for 3 short years before he dies too. And get this, historical sources hint that it probably wasn't from natural causes. So that very same year, the next king, a cousin, takes the throne. And what's his very first act as king? He abandons Koh Ker completely and moves the capital right back to Angkor. And just like that, the great experiment was over.
I mean, without the king and his court, the city just emptied out. And the jungle, which they had pushed back so aggressively to build this place, it just grew right back. For nearly 1,000 years, Lingapura, the great pyramid city of Jayavarman IV, was completely lost to the world. Its story? Totally forgotten.
But the story doesn't end there. Of course not. In the late 19th century, the city was rediscovered. And this kicked off a brand new and honestly often tragic chapter in its long history.
And here's the really painful irony of it all. The city's remote location, the very thing that caused it to be abandoned and forgotten for 1,000 years, well, that also made it the perfect, easy, undefended target for looters once French explorers put it back on the map.
And the devastation was just absolute. This quote from researchers sums it up in the most chilling way possible. It says, "None of the immense, expressive, and beautiful sculptures are left at the site. None." The city was systematically stripped of its priceless art, which was then sold off to museums and private collections all over the world. The road from being rediscovered to actually being protected was, as you can imagine, a long and difficult one. It really started with systematic looting by French expeditions way back in the 1880s. And that plundering just kept going for over a century. It all came to a head in 2011 with this huge international incident where the auction house Sotheby's tried to sell a statue that had been illegally ripped from the site. But finally, and this is the good news, on September 17, 2023, Koh Ker was given the protection it so desperately deserved. It was officially named a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
So you might be asking, why was it looted so heavily? What was so special? Well, because under Jayavarman IV, the artists at Koh Ker developed this total unique, incredible style. It was more dynamic, more expressive, more full of life than anything that had come before it. It's considered one of the absolute pinnacles of Khmer sculpture. And that masterpiece quality, that one-of-a-kind beauty, is exactly what made it so valuable and so desirable on the black market.
So after this brief, brilliant life, and then 1,000 years of silence, Koh Ker has finally been saved. Its protection is now secure, but with so much of the site still completely unexplored, still not even cleared of landmines, you know its story is far from over. Which leaves us with one final, pretty tantalizing question. What other secrets about this rebel king and his incredible pyramid city are still waiting out there to be discovered right underneath the jungle floor?